Welcome, one and all, to our next spirits review here at Bespoke Unit. We're traveling to the Isle of Islay, but it's not gonna be a peaty review. Instead, it's all about juniper. We'll be sampling the Botanist Gin from the Isle of Islay. Hello and welcome. This is another spirits review here at Bespoke Unit, and my name is Reinhard. We'll be sampling the Botanist Gin from Bruichladdich Distillery on the Isle of Islay. Whereas most people probably know Islay as the Mecca and the heaven for peat lovers and peaty single malt Scotch, a few very interesting craft spirits come from your typical traditional whiskey or single malt distilleries, and Bruichladdich Distillery on the Isle of Islay is no exemption to that. And that's how the Botanist came to life. Let me show you the beautiful bottle right here. You can see on the label the indication of 22. That's the local botanicals that are being used in the recipe for this delightful gin here. And funny fact, even though Bruichladdich still is 99% of the days during the year running their stills for the production of single malt whiskey, probably the Botanist is their very best seller overall around the globe. We will be smelling and tasting this delightful spirit shortly, but I just wanted to briefly talk about the botanical composition of this gin yet again. For me, it's a very classic, dry, juniper-forward expression with an overall distinct herbaceous profile. Some of the botanicals will be quite familiar to most of the people, others probably less so. And you can find all the Latin names of the botanicals that are being used right here on the bottle label. So you would read something like Menta aquatica, Myris, Filipendula, and Betula, another mint variety that is being used here, thyme, melissa. So quite a few kitchen staples and gin botanical staples. But let's get right to it. I'm going to be pouring a glass here. I already have some in the glass because we did some tasting before. And now let's dive right in. When it comes to color, there's not much that we can say for a gin other than right here, you see it's slightly hazy in the glass. So a little bit of a cloudiness that I detect after pouring. The viscosity is thick and oily, even though the legs run down in a rather quick fashion. Other than that, what else is to be said here? The label indicates 46% volume alcohol, so a bit more than your traditional 40%, which will give more oomph, more character, and it will just spice up and take your gin and tonic or your dry martini cocktail to another level. In terms of the smell, gently roll the glass as always. Not too much of a swirly because you will get mostly alcohol in your nose, but rather gently roll the glass so you coat all the outside and more oxygen can come right to the spirit and open up the nasal expression. So there it is. First of all, Juniper Blast. Yes, this is a London dry style gin. So you get that juniper, fresh, ethereal quality right up front, right in your nose. There's not too much of a citric, fresh orange, grapefruit, and lemon going on. That would probably be for another gin entirely. The Botanist is more herbaceous, more on a seaweedy, briny, maritime overall character. And this is very obvious and prominent here in the nose. I get some herbs, sweet herbs, slightly sweaty if you think of a slightly bruised mint that has become dark and resinous, funky herbaceousness. If you think of the lovely sprouts of thyme, a little bit of rosemary coming through. Chamomile is there as well. So an interesting combination and interplay of sweeter and drier nuances. Let's give it a sip. Let's give it a try. mellow beginning, a piquancy that I detect right away, a slight salty mineral, as I said, maritime character. It sort of speaks a little to the overall provenance and to the characteristic of where the distillery sits. So this is not your typical traditional London dry style that you would expect, or something that probably plays more in the Mediterranean category like Gin Mare or Chivine. This has sort of a northern association with it, a bit rough around the edges, almost as if you imagine sitting on the shores of the Isle of Isla with some of the rain and the seawater splashing in your face. Very fresh, very mineral, characterful, and seaweedy almost. There's a slight evolution on the palate from sort of a creamy sweet beginning that then transcends into a more lively herbaceousness, and towards the very end this pepper spice, a little bit of chili and paprika, and the juniper then all comes back towards the end and sort of closes off, rounds off, and balances off the overall expression that I could describe as rather complex, nuanced. Nothing's overpowering. Everything's sort of well integrated and blended into each other. The alcohol is perfectly woven in. There's not much of an alcoholic burn up front, even though this is 46% by volume. Character, mouthfeel, depth, it's all there, nicely interwoven. The sweetness is just detectable in the very back. So for all of those who love their gin on the dry side, this will definitely suit your palate. It's not very common that people would drink a gin like the Botanist straight or even pure on ice, even though I have to say I very much like to always try gins neat. That's why I have a nosing glass right here. And I could perfectly imagine pouring this over ice with nothing else but probably a little thyme or a rosemary sprig in there. For all the gin and tonic lovers out there, yes, this will make for a delicious gin and tonic. Depending on your preferences of sweetness or dryness, you would probably want to reach for something like Schweppes Dry, a traditional Thomas Henry tonic water, Fever Tree, or even the Fever Tree Mediterranean that would slightly underline and support the maritime and herbaceous qualities of this gin. By the way, I just realized, of course, it does say Islay Dry Gin on the bottle, so that's sort of a play to London Dry characteristics, but with Islay being the distinct origin of this gin, they just proudly state that right on the label here as well. Other than that, I'm a huge fan of a Botanist Dry Martini cocktail, stirred in a ratio of 6:1 with a traditional dry vermouth like Noli Prat or Dolin and a green pitted olive as a garnish for that. Other cocktail recommendations could be a White Lady, or I could even see this in a Ramos gin fizz, and also a hanky panky with the Botanist would make for a delicious cocktail. When it comes to pairing recommendations, I would really like to have some green olives on the side, just as a little nibble or snack. You could also have some dry, crispy breadsticks to go along with it, or in terms of cigar pairings, a classical Davidoff white label. For me, Signature 2000 here is the perfect match. Nothing over complex, nothing too dark, nothing too roasted, rather something with a Connecticut shade, Ecuadorian wrapper, lighter, soft, mellow body with a bit and a touch of bitterness in the back. And usually I love to pair the classical Davidoff white labels with green olives as well. So here's your perfect match and how you could round it all off. This is great value for money. So it's sort of your everyday rotational gin. You could have this in your back bar and use it daily for your gin and tonics or for your dry martinis, whether you are alone with your beloved ones or with guests that you have over for a cocktail and dinner party. And so it's very easy to handle, easy to pour, great bottle design. It's easy to pour, quality cork on top here, perfect design. It looks nice and tidy and clean, minimal, but with a nice touch with the embossed botanicals here on the label. That's pretty much it for today. Short, sweet, simple, to the point. This is a gin for you. Islay Dry, the Botanist, with 22 botanicals from the Isle of Islay. Have it neat in your cocktail, dry martini for me, or in your gin and tonic. And if you drink it neat, just enjoy. And I'll see you next time here at Bespoke Unit with another spirit review. Until then, cheers, and with my very best wishes and spirits.